Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. This week, we have the CEO of Worship Road Radio. He's also the former senior VP at Grand Canyon University and CEO of Crosswalk.com. He's also a Lakers fan, which is always good in my book. We have Scott Fehrenbacher. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Very good, LeTroy. Thanks for having me, man. This is very, very nice.
All right, pleasure to have you. So, like we said, you're redefining faith-based media. How did you get into faith-based media?
I was living in Seattle at the time, running a nonprofit organization years ago, way too many years ago, and I was headhunted by an organization out of Washington, D.C., had this concept, and you're probably too young to remember this, LeTroy, but a company called America Online.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the first dial-up locations or destinations using the web. As they said in those days, the World Wide Web, right?
Right.
So they recruited me to that, and I was very intrigued about the whole notion of this new media idea, this new media concept, and what it meant. So moved my family to Washington, D.C. This company turned into Crosswalk.com. We were the largest Christian internet site in the world. Took the company public. It was a NASDAQ stock, symbol Amen, which was kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I never anticipated getting into that business, but once I was in there, I was hooked. It was a passion, and it was something that we really thrived at. So that's kind of how I got started in this whole stream.
All right. Well, since you've been part of this wave for almost 30 years, just talk about how it's evolved.
I would tell you, and I don't know how familiar you or your audience is with faith-based or Christian media, but unfortunately, this industry, it's a very niche industry, of course, but it's been very reactive and certainly not a pioneer or a first adopter at almost anything. And that's the way it was in those days, is that we're trying to explain the internet to people. We're trying to talk about how this is going to dramatically change how you communicate to your donors, how you communicate to your followers, right? And funny story, LeTroy, our company received the very first Internet of the Year award from a group called the National Religious Broadcasters, or the NRB. So, it's our trades association. And this was in 2001, and when they offered the award, I went up to accept the award. In the introduction, they said, well, who knows if the internet's even going to be around next year? And that's been kind of the way it has been over time. And so I like being a bit of a disruptor and introducing how new technology can help what we do. And that's what I'm still doing today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my familiarity with faith-based radio stations growing up was a lot of times they were on an AM dial, and the reception was terrible.
Awful.
And a lot of times you would hear they would play local church broadcasts. They would have speakers or like infomercials. They'll have like the local lawyer or insurance guy doing a 30-minute show. There'd be a lot of music played, like old school music, like James Cleveland days and Jackson, and it just seemed like it was like a mom and pop operation. So I think with the thought of like the way you transformed it with everything that you're doing now, I applaud you for that.
Well, thanks, LeTroy. You have exact experience of so many people. In fact, excuse me, if you want to see what the state of Christian radio is generally, just go to Reddit
Mm-hmm.
right in Christian radio, and you're going to see the challenges that the industry has. And I think the industry is very, I would say, complacent. Like, why would we change? But the world is changing, and if you don't change, you're going to fail. And traditionally in this business, you've had what's called pay to play, which means those sermons you heard were sermons that weren't necessarily chosen for their quality or their message, but for their checkbook. Right. And that's how the industry started. But I'd like to think that we can evolve so that it's a market-driven, highly professional, very listener-friendly business model, and that's what we're trying to do. We're the first Christian radio station on a national scale that has no advertising and no fundraising share-a-thons, they call them. And it's all about providing music, providing inspiration to the audience. And now we can do that with technology we have that we didn't have just 5 years ago. And so we've become the largest national Christian radio station in Canada in a year and a half, just because it has that model that I think a lot of people are hungry for. But it's a technology play, because if you've always had the same DJ and the same model and the same sales, you're just going to keep doing the same thing, and I don't think that's what the listeners want.
Mm-hmm. How was it received? I'm pretty sure you did a lot of data-driven research as far as making this transition and axing out the ads and the sermons and the fundraising projects. Like, how was it received from the listeners out the gate? Was there a lot of twisting of the arm and convincing?
It was more of, how do you do this? Or what's the catch? Because, literally I'm listening to music all the time, and I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? So the audience has been, we've grown to over 90,000 listeners in a year with very little marketing, and it's all been because listeners are telling friends, hey, finally I can get out from this theme of basically always being asked for money on a traditional station, but just listening to the inspiration of Christian music. And it doesn't have all the interruptions and the annoyances. So the listeners have really embraced it, and I get a ton of very rewarding communications coming back. Now the industry, on the other hand, is not necessarily there. I was just at a Christian radio owners conference in Orlando, and they brought in this speaker from India, LeTroy, and this guy was going to talk for an hour on AI. And so he starts the show, or his talk rather, by asking for hands. He said, who here is using AI in your broadcasting? And I'm like one of 4 people out of 600 that raised my hand. And the other 596, they were booing. Boo, boo, no, we can't do that. And that was indicative of me that the industry has a long way to go in really catching up to the technological changes and advantages that are out there.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of people are afraid of AI and cloud native systems. I work in tech, and I utilize ChatGPT and other models to assist with the podcasting. And it's if you use it the right way, it
exactly
reduces the amount of grunt work you have to do. It takes away that time to free up time for you to be creative or do the things you enjoy.
Exactly.
Do you think that's just a signal as to why a lot of people think that radio is a dying industry?
I would have to come to that conclusion, at least in our niche industry. this NRB I mentioned before, they literally have sponsored legislation in Congress to mandate that car manufacturers continue putting in AM radios. Now, AM radio is fine. I listen to sports talk and so forth, but to mandate it doesn't seem right to me. It'd be like Congress mandating Henry Ford to keep a blacksmith in the back of their auto plant. Let the marketplace tell you where they're going, and don't mandate an old technology. If an AM station is doing great, they're going to continue to do great. But if an AM station isn't doing great, don't keep it there because it's mandated by law. So I think that if in my book, LeTroy, rather than all the resource and energy to keep AM radio, why aren't we finding and exploring ways to appropriately use new technology to expand our message? Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, yeah, I think radio generally needs to catch up and needs to embrace what's around the corner. Travel agencies did it when the internet came on. Totally changed their model. But most importantly, the whole music industry had to radically change to embrace it. And they didn't ask Congress to mandate 8 tracks or cassette tapes. So, I think that's where we are right now.
Yeah. And isn't it like a clear sign to these station owners that the money that they were making 20 years ago, is being spread out amongst other competitors, whether it's streaming platforms or television, podcast, satellite radio, podcast. There's just so much competition. YouTube. So they're not noticing these other options that advertisers could latch onto.
Well, I can only speak for the niche industry I'm in, and I would tell you that they're not embracing it. They're digging in their heels, and at best they'd say, "Well, look, I have a podcast. We just film our radio show and make it a podcast." Well, that's not a podcast. A podcast is designed like yours from the ground up to be a communication tool and not just a rebroadcast of a different program. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, LeTroy, ad dollars always kind of tell you what's around the corner because that's where the market is telling you what's effective.
Mm-hmm. So, like with what you're doing, how do you, manage to play to your core audience while also attracting secular listeners that, in this time, it's a rough time and sometimes people need inspirational music to get them through the day. Like, how do you appeal to both sides at the same time?
Great question. I think the traditional programming for Christian radio, at least, is, and listen, the largest national network in America that's a Christian network plays no more than 50 songs a week. And it's all really dictated by the labels. We're trying to be listener-centric, and we do 4 times that as far as the spread of music because we're not dependent on the record labels. We really look and lean into indie and crossover artists. And the other thing we do in our little niche is that you won't find in traditional stations for sure, and that is we identify just great mainstream songs that if you look at the lyrics through a lens of faith, it's very meaningful. We just played Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls, and we represent what this song means if you look at its core, because we all love good music. We just played Coldplay yesterday, played The Fray the day before that. So to answer your question, we are a much different kind of station. And within the realm of Christian music, there's multiple genres. You have gospel, Southern gospel, but we have pop. We're playing a lot of rock, R&B, hip hop, as well as pop. and traditional congregational worship. So we have a broad range of music. Even though we're called Worship Road Radio, we define worship, LeTroy, as any song that would inspire you to worship, even if it's from the Goo Goo Dolls.
Okay, nice. So I'm pretty sure that broadens your age demo. So instead of
Dramatically.
people like say 45 and up, you probably go all the way down to 20, 25,
16.
16. Okay.
Yeah, the NPR, National Public Radio in the States, recently had a article saying that in these unstable times of uncertainty and so much seeming chaos, Christian music, even for people who don't follow the Christian faith, brings a sense of peace and inspiration that you won't find in other places. And we lean into that as well, because it's great background music, but it's great encouragement music. If you're having a tough day, this isn't all about walking into a Sunday morning service and listening to music. So it's much more than that, and we celebrate that, and so we lean into that.
What role do you feel like you all play with the way that you program the station with shaping faith conversations?
Definitely a disruptor. I'm very comfortable with that. I've done that before, and I think that we put, not to get into theology, but we, in this industry, we often put God in a box, and we determine that the American culture or whatever culture we're in determines what's right and what's wrong. But the gospel's very clear. The gospel's for everybody. Everyone's welcome. Everyone has access to the same hope and inspiration. And so that's I believe that's really our mandate. And I find that a really breath of fresh air from our listeners is like, holy cow, I haven't heard that song forever. Or how do you get away with playing the Fray? Well, why not? So that's I would say we're definitely a disruptor.
Right. And you've been disrupting your whole career, whether it's higher ed, online ministry, media. Like, what's that common thread in making those transformations work?
Very good question. And I guess I would, some people might say, Scott's just, he's crazy. Like, just get in line. But the way I read, and it has a spiritual drive for me. I wouldn't, certainly not doing it for revenue, although we've done well, but could have done better had we just fallen into the same patterns of everybody else and not pushed the envelope. But it's a mandate that I believe the Bible gives us, believers, that our job is to basically communicate the news of the gospel. And I believe that music is that one way to talk that gets beyond all the baggage of even church or politics, or everything is so I don't know, everything is so politicized these days, LeTroy. I think music is that one thing that cuts through that. That is a message platform that allows us to hear encouragement and hope, which I believe is out there and easily accessible to all of us if we look for it. And so that's what floats my boat. And even in the tough days, it's like, hey, I have the best job in the world.
Great. Yeah, I love that you make the point on how music is the ultimate connector, no matter what your political views are, or even your different faith.
Exactly.
Like, music is universal, and it unites us. How do you balance honoring tradition with introducing bold change?
Another very good question. Tradition is very important. Tradition, for a number of reasons, will either have a foundational element to it or a comfort level to it. And for example, we understand that there are times when tradition needs to be at the forefront. And so almost all of our Sunday programming, right through the mid-afternoon, is wrapped in a much more traditional programming, because that is the time that in the Sabbath that you really recognize the the mandate, the size of a creator, right? The gravity of it. And so I think that that's when tradition reigns supreme. And other than that, we're pretty non-traditional, and I think that's our brand.
Mm-hmm. Are you hosting any of the shows on the network?
No, I do not host any of the shows. I do. Well, I should take that back. We do have a feature once a week where we break down a song, and we look at the foundation of the writing and turn that into a devotional. And so we have a podcast feature. I'm one of the two co-hosts, so it's just for an in-programming podcast that we do. But other than that, all of our DJs know what they're doing much more than I do.
Okay.
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
All right. So, yeah, this point and then what we were talking about earlier, like, yeah, we have to take the conversation in this direction. So,
Sure.
like, with radio, and we talked about how people are stuck in their ways, especially when it comes to faith-based radio. Like, what's your secret sauce? What's your station's secret sauce when it comes to making sure that the station and the personalities are in the know, social media savvy, connects with audiences outside of the radio station, or turning on their radio, or on their iPhone, tune into your station?
I'll tell you what. You basically reframed a part of our mission statement. That's where we want to go. I wouldn't tell you that we're there yet, but that's where we do want to go. And I think you have to be listener friendly. You need to listen to your constituents, your customers, right? And in the industry, there's a demographic called Becky. Okay, so if you're a traditional Christian radio station, you are probably programming to serve Becky. Now, Becky is defined to be a 30 to 45-year-old mother with young children, and they want music that is safe. Okay, so they want music that they can play in front of their children that's not going to be offensive. Oh, I regard that as the lowest bar, the lowest standard. We should be shooting for something much higher than that. I want an experience that inspires you. I want an experience that encourages you. And you look in the Bible, safe is not a word that you can find many times. I'm looking for something that talks to people that are not Becky. And with that, we do stand alone, especially in Canada. As you know, we're out of Vancouver, BC, although we have a ton of listeners in the States as well. But we're Canada's national Christian radio station. But because we're digital, people from all over the world listen, but it's mostly Canada and the US. And so we're trying to serve the non-Becky audience, and we're listening because really no one on a national level has ever done that before.
Okay. Wow. What's your leadership philosophy, like when you're taking the helm of a new venture? And I want you to steer it in the way of like talking about the art of pivoting, like knowing when it's time to like leave Grand Canyon or when it's time to um, sell Crosswalk and pivot on to a new venture. Um, what's your thoughts?
LeTroy, you have great questions. I'll tell you that my to define the leadership, to start with that, I have this motto that's driven almost all of those changes, and it's not a motto that's in a comfort zone. In fact, I had a mentor once that said, "Scott, let me ask you a question. When's the last time that God's will was in your comfort zone?" And I hated hearing that because I can never forget it. And is my job in life to be comfortable? For me, it's not. So I have this motto, and that is, have a dream so big, so audacious, that without the direct intervention of the hand of God, it is inherently doomed to failure. Now, what that means is, if you have a dream that you can do on your own power, it's really not a dream. It's just something, it's a goal, something you can go out and should do. But, there's a lot of reasons not to have this kind of a dream because it's hard. But that's what motivates me, and that is have that dream so big that the only way it's going to work is if God intervenes and helps you get it done. And so when I get to a place where we're managing rather than growing, that's not a place for me. I'm a builder and not a manager, if that helps. And so that inherently, when we started at Grand Canyon University, we were on the wrong side of town. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. The students called the official bird of Grand Canyon University the police helicopter, and we grew that in 7 years to 70,000 students online, 20,000 students on campus, and today it's the largest Christian university, excuse me, in the world. That was extremely exciting to me. Somewhat scary, but extremely exciting. And when you get to that level where you're broadening out and just managing, that's when I'm looking for something else.
Okay, I like that. So what are you dreaming about now?
Oh, I'm right in the throes of making what I call democratizing Christian music. Uh-huh. So in Canada, I don't know how familiar you are with Canada, but there's the country's huge. Geographically, the country's massive. And there are just a few towns that could even support even an old family-run station. So much of this country's never even heard Christian music. And if they have, it's on an old stale playlist. And so we're democratizing access to Christian music and here in Canada. And what that's doing is it's also bleeding into the States, where there's lots of places where you may have a small Christian station, but you're not Becky. You're not that person who wants to hear old sermons. You want to hear encouragement. You don't want to hear ads all the time. And so I'm right in the throes of this new disruptive vision of really bringing what I would suggest, and if your listeners have never heard Christian music, check it out. I mean, it is much better than you would be led to believe. And that's what drives me every day. I'd rather be I wouldn't rather be, but you would think that maybe I'd like to be in a cabin on the ocean here, drinking Starbucks in the morning and reading books. That sounds good, but that's just not me. So we're building this thing and we're growing it. In fact, we're the fastest growing Christian station right now in either Canada or the United States. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
All right. Do you learn more from your wins or your losses?
Oh, you know the answer to that. And I hate it. But we always learn more from the losses. And that's why you lean into it and you get back on that saddle, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
what do you... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that you when you're a disruptor, you have to anticipate the losses, and you charge through. Gosh, it sounds so easy, but it certainly isn't. But that's the difference, right?
Mm-hmm. So as a disruptor, what do you see when you look in the mirror?
Very few questions leave me speechless. You should have warned me on that one. I see someone who has balanced family and career fairly well, but someone who is driven by what I would call an internal calling, because that's, to me, that's what drives me. But my family, like most everybody, my family is what's important to me, and I'd like to consider myself a good father and husband, but also a nonconformist. And finally, someone who needs to lose some weight. How's that?
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Oh boy.
All right, Scott. So, tell us where we can find you, where we can find Worship Road Radio.
Well, thanks for offering that opportunities. We can be heard because we're digital anywhere, anytime. We have free phone app on either Apple or Google's Play Store. You can go to your smart speaker like Alexa and say, play Worship Road Radio. You can hear us on Amazon Fire TV, TuneIn.com, radio.net. In other words, because we're digital, we're far more accessible than almost anything else. And the phone is really how people consume content today, right? And so that's our most popular form. In fact, I can see right now, because we're digital, where people are listening to us, how long they're listening to us, where they're from, and what platform they're on. Right now, it's 72% phone apps.
Mm-hmm. All right. So before we wrap, what's the vision board 5 years from now? Where do you see Worship Road Radio?
I would like to think that the vision of Worship Road Radio is to be broader than Canada and the U.S. and self-sustaining in a way that fits and fills a demographic that's been underserved by Christian radio since the inception, and that is the non-Becky audience, the younger people, the seekers, the people who are curious but have never stepped into a church, or the people who are not looking for safe, they're looking for inspiration. And I would like to think that in 5 years we will be the leader and the go-to market share in that space. And that's not for, we're not going to go public. We're a nonprofit foundation. I like to be able to pay my bills like anyone else. But this is not about revenue, and I've been there before as the CEO of a public company. This is about really much more idealistic goals, and that is to get and democratize access to Christian music everywhere in the world.
Well, you're doing it. You're well on your way.
Well,
like I said,
I hope you like it. And LeTroy, if you have a song request, just email me.
Okay. Well, like my favorite gospel song is "Optimistic" by Sounds of Blackness. Well, it's not just my favorite gospel song; it's my favorite song. Period. Sounds of Blackness, "Optimistic." So, yeah, I'd love to hear that anytime.
Give me a liner, and I'll put it on the air.
All right. All right. So.
And I'm going to be promoting your podcast as well.
I appreciate you. Scott Fehrenbacher, Worship Road Radio, worshiproad.com. Laker fan. We're going to have to catch a game.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
One day. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your mission. Continue to push forward and redefine faith-based media. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.
Thanks, LeTroy.